Kiyotaka Ayana Koji begins attending school in Class 1D at the Tokyo Metropolitan Advanced Nurturing High School, an institution established by the government for training Japan's best students. Class D's homeroom teacher Sai Chabashira explains the point system, where everybody gets a monthly allowance of 100,000 points that they can use as money at local shops, with 1 point equaling 1 yen, and also warns the students that they are judged on merit. Kiyotaka begins navigating the system, being careful about how he spends his points, while also getting to know the gregarious Kikyo Kushida and then attempting to make peace with his aloof class fellow, Susune Horikita. In an attempt to help Kushida become friends with Horikita, Kiyotaka brings her to a cafe where only girls meet, having secretly arranged for Kushida and 2 other classmates to be there. However, Horikita sees through the plan and leaves disgustedly. As April passes by, the majority of Class D lavishly spends their points and slacks off in class without any reprimand, causing Kiyotaka to become suspicious. On May 1st, the Class D students are surprised to find out that they did not get any allowance, and Chabashira explains that their allowance depends on their merit. Having ignored their studies, the class receives 0 points for the month. Sai Chabashira explains how the system works at this school, as the 4 first-year classes are all ranked by merit, and that D class has the opportunity to be promoted to C class should they perform exceptionally well on exams. She also warns them that, given the current situation, anyone who fails 1 more exam will be expelled. Now fully aware of the system, everybody is taking their studies more seriously, except for the 3 big idiots of the class: Ken Sudo, Kanji Ike, and Haruki Yamauchi. Susune Horikita then treats Kiyotaka Ayana Koji to an expensive lunch to discuss their strategy, as well as bringing aboard the 3 idiots to the library to study. Kiyotaka and Kikyo Kushida succeed in getting them to come, but they leave immediately while Ken lets everybody know that he wants to make it rich quickly by going pro in basketball. That night, Kiyotaka goes out for a drink and overhears Susune talking to her older brother, Manabu Horikita, the student council president. The conversation continues as Manabu tries to attack Susune over a disagreement about her view of isolation being independence, which caused her placement in Class D in the first place. Kiyotaka then intervenes and begins dodging Manabu's strikes with great ease. Manabu is quickly impressed and begins questioning Kiyotaka's martial arts style, only to get a vague answer. Manabu then remembers exactly who Kiyotaka is, as he reveals that he scored a 50 on his entrance exam and recent quiz before he asks if it was intentional, but Kiyotaka replies that it was just a coincidence. Manabu voices his surprise that his sister made a friend, but she denies it as she doesn't need such a thing, where he voices his disappointment on her mindset before leaving. Susune and Kiyotaka then speak with each other, as she awkwardly apologizes to him for her earlier state. Kiyotaka then shrugs it off as if it were nothing. She soon remarks about Kiyotaka's excellent martial art fighting proficiency, as he answers that he used to do non-martial arts activities like tea ceremonies, before Susune reminded him that he contradicted his previous statement where he said that he did piano and calligraphy, which he agreed to as well. She then questions him on her brother's earlier query on whether or not he intentionally got the same exact half scores each time, but he doesn't give her a clear answer. Susune then remarks that everything about him is such a mystery, in which he asks her if she was really done with the study group, which she confirms, stating those who fail don't concern her. Kiyotaka soon inquires on whether it was this distance and cold behavior personality of hers that got her placed in Class D in the first place, but she couldn't answer it. Soon enough, the midterm exams come around, and Class D as a whole performs very well, with some scoring among the highest among the first years in the whole school. Class D then gets the results of their last exam, and everybody passes except for Ken, who missed the passing threshold by 1 point. It is revealed that the grades were the result of Kiyotaka spending 15,000 points to buy the questions to an old exam from an upperclassman 3 days before the exam, which is technically within the school's rules. During one of those days, Kiyotaka goes to invite Ken Sudo to the group, but finds him being provoked by some of the students from Class C. When Ken tries to fight back, he is quickly grabbed by 2 of them, as the leader Kakeru Ryuen approaches, saying he knows Ken will fail the test and be expelled. As he gestures what appears to be an attack, Ken gets scared and flinches as Kakeru simply flicks him on the head, amused by his fear. As he tries to continue his torture, Honami Ichinose intervenes, telling them all to stop what they are doing immediately. Kakeru tries to explain that it was purely in self-defense, self-defense, but Honami doesn't buy it. She then tells them to stop or she'll call security on them for fighting on school grounds if they don't comply. The bullies from Class C immediately drop Ken and leave. Ken responds by being angered by his rescue and tries to get revenge on them, but Kiyotaka and Honami quickly tell him to let it go. Honami calms the spectators before leaving as Kiyotaka asks Ken to join the study group, which he quickly refuses as he heads off to basketball practice. Troubled by the recent events, Kiyotaka approaches Sai asking the question of whether or not equality exists, and she answers that it does not, which Kiyotaka agrees with. Kiyotaka then offers to pay her with his points so Ken will not be expelled, to which she accepts but wants 100,000 points in exchange. Unable to pay the price, Kiyotaka's offer is joined by Susune, who offers 50,000 points, which along with Kiyotaka's own 50,000 points is able to buy the missing point from the teacher so that Ken's expulsion can be rescinded. Amused by this, Sai voices her earlier belief that the current Class D would impress her, and that what they are doing to help their friend has exceeded her expectations. She then asks the two of them to go tell Ken that he will not be expelled. That night, Kikyo organizes a little party to celebrate in Kiyotaka's room, much to his dismay. As everyone else enjoys themselves, Kikyo asks if Kiyotaka helped Ken out. The party is quickly silenced as everyone tunes in to hear if this is true. Kiyotaka brushes it off and casts the credit to Susune, who is barely able to explain. After the party, Kikyo leaves but forgets her cell phone, and Kiyotaka follows her to give it back only to find out the truth about her personality. Having discovered her secret personality, Kikyo demands Kiyotaka to keep it a secret or else she will accuse him of raping her. She then grabs Kiyotaka's hand and forcefully puts it on her breast, claiming that she'll use the fingerprints as evidence. He promises he won't tell a soul and asks to be released as she lets go of his hand. Kiyotaka thinks back to his previous encounters with her bubbly persona and wonders if this is all an act and if the person he is seeing was the real Kikyo all along. Kikyo then asks if she can truly trust him in not telling anyone about what he saw. Kiyotaka reiterates that his lips are sealed. Kikyo states that she will hold him to that as she returns to her bubbly personality, stating that they have another secret just as he internally wonders who she really is. In Class B, the scores of a recent quiz are given out, and the class had done very well, with some thanking Honomi Ichinose for her tutoring, while she internally voices her desires for the whole class to reach Class 1A. Sometime later, Kiyotaka reflects on his recent meeting with Kikyo as he goes to the elevator and sees Kikyo with Susune, who is still distant towards her. Kikyo speaks to him as he recalls her previous actions before conversing with Susune over them being together, as Susune states she didn't have a choice before the elevator stops and she leaves. Kikyo voices disappointment that Susune didn't want to walk to school with her before Honami appears happily greeting Kikyo before she meets Kiyotaka. Following a brief discussion about his relationship with Kikyo, she asks if they have received their points, but the two can't answer. July 1st arrives, and Class D's point distribution is put on hold due to an incident the previous day involving Ken Sudo and 3 students of Class C, 2 of which being his basketball teammates. Ken was attacked and fought back in self-defense, but unless the class can find a witness to clear his name before the hearing next week, Ken will be liable for his actions, resulting in the class receiving no points for the month. On a later day, Honami asks Kiyotaka for help as she tells him that she might get asked out on a date. Kiyotaka is confused as she explains that she is inexperienced in romantic situations and needs him to pretend to be her boyfriend to avoid hurting the feelings of the person who sent her the love letter. When he refuses and questions this odd request, Honami begs him as she can't hurt the person that is revealed to be her friend, Chihiro Shiranami, who arrives and sees them. Chihiro asks who Kiyotaka is as he pieces things together, while Honami introduces him to her. Her eyes full of tears, Chihiro questions if he is her boyfriend, which Honami tries to confirm, but Kiyotaka states he is simply a friend, much to both of their surprise. Kiyotaka then tells Honami to be honest about her feelings to Chihiro, who he notes struggled to muster up the courage to express her feelings in the first place. Kiyotaka then notes that it is really not his place to give advice on the situation, and he takes his leave while the girls talk to one another. Just moments later, Kiyotaka is seen looking through his phone as he sees he still hasn't received any points. Very soon, Chihiro is seen crying as she runs off while Honami appears and Kiyotaka questions her over what had happened. Honami revealed that she told Chihiro she wasn't interested in her, and the two made a promise to try to go back to being friends the next day. Honami states that she hopes that they can remain friends, and Kiyotaka agrees, saying that it depends on them. Honami apologizes to Kiyotaka for dragging him into the mess, but Kiyotaka shrugs it off, stating that it was nothing too bizarre. Honami then notes that this now means that she owes Kiyotaka a favor. The class posts messages asking for witnesses to the incident, and Class B joins in after Honami wished to repay Kiyotaka, much to his classmates' curiosity. After she and her classmate Ryuji Kanzaki revealed an anonymous person who gave clues about the past of Daiichi Ishizaki, Kiyotaka helped Honami by giving points to the person, but he notices something on her phone before she quickly takes it back as she and Ryuji leave. Kiyotaka reflects on what he saw, which was her large amount of points, and wonders how Ichinose attained so many points in the first place. It turns out that their classmate Airi Sakura was there and captured the incident with her camera. That night, Kiyotaka and Kikyo talk about murder cases where there is a lack of evidence, where one suspect is a known murderer and the other is a law-abiding citizen. They continue by saying that most people are most likely going to listen to the words of a law-abiding citizen, even if that person is actually the one who committed the crime. The next day, Airi is approached asking for the evidence, and she runs away, dropping her camera in the process. Airi asks Kiyotaka and Kikyo to accompany her to the electronics store to get the camera repaired, which is thankfully covered under warranty. The store clerk Yukitsu asks for Airi's contact information, though she is too nervous to provide it, and Kiyotaka uses his information instead. Afterward, the trio sit and talk for a little while. Kikyo then goes to freshen up as Kiyotaka is left alone with Airi. After a brief silence, she begins to question herself and what she should do, as Kiyotaka reaffirms her not to burden herself with a decision she may regret. Kiyotaka's reaffirming words cause Airi to blush and stare at him for a while before Kikyo returns from the bathroom. The trio then begins to go their separate ways as Kikyo asks Kiyotaka if she can visit his room later. Later at the dorms, Kikyo and Kiyotaka begin to look at pictures of Airi and figure out that she's actually an internet model and has become quite a hit recently online. With impeccable timing, Kikyo then receives a phone call from Airi claiming that she will help them in the court case. Later at the hearing presided by Manabu, both classes give their testimonies accusing each other of instigating the fight, with the initial ruling going in Class C's favor. After staying silent out of fear over her brother's presence, Susune then speaks up after getting tickled by Kiyotaka to regain her reason. Susune then asks what the circumstances of the fight were and points out that in a 3-against-1 fight that it would be nearly impossible for those kinds of injuries to be all Ken's doing. She then presents Airi as a witness, providing evidence that she was present as she captured the fight going on in the background during a photo shoot. However, the evidence only proves that she was present and does not clear Sudo of any wrongdoing. The Class C homeroom teacher Sakigami proposes a compromise to suspend Sudo for 2 weeks and the 3 Class C students for 1 week each, but Class D rejects it, resulting in an argument that is soon broken up by Manabu. Realizing that one side is clearly lying, Manabu ends the hearing and will make his decision the next day unless admissions or additional evidence is presented, with expulsions possible. Kiyotaka then speaks with Airi about her late admission while she apologizes for taking so long. He responds and assures her that her testimony was a tremendous help to the case. Manabu and his secretary walk out to see them as Manabu stated he expected a strategy from Kiyotaka and Susune, but Kiyotaka shrugs this off. When he then focuses his attention on Airi, he makes a hint of her words possibly being lies, but Kiyotaka defends her by voicing his belief in her statements. Manabu then tries to strike Kiyotaka, but he swiftly dodges as Airi and Akane are surprised by the event. Manabu then asks Kiyotaka if he can prove Airi was right, as he tells him that that was a good question and that they would just have to wait to see the answer. The following episode begins with a monologue of the life of Airi Sakura, which goes on with some detailing as to why she chooses not to get involved with others. The others are letters from an obsessed individual who proclaims their love to her due to the photos of her online, which deeply scares her. Susune Horikita and Kiyotaka Ayana Koji are investigating the stairwell where Susune discovers something very important to the case. Much later, Kiyotaka arrives in the classroom where Airi is waiting for everyone before he announces his presence to her, startling her. They then greet each other and Kiyotaka assures her not to be so tense around him. Kiyotaka continues on to thank her, as her recent actions may very well save the entire class. Airi slightly blushes at his words and decides to build up the courage to ask him something, but Kiyotaka receives a notification from Kikyo about something important and then assures Airi that he hopes to hear what she has to say later. The 3 boys from Class C who accused Ken of attacking them under the pretense that Kikyo Kushida called them. However, they realize the truth with the appearances of Kiyotaka and Susune. The trio tries to leave, but Susune forces them to stay, pointing out the cameras in the area, which causes them to worry, as it would show that they instigated the fight. At first, the boys question why the council hasn't brought this factor up yet, but Kiyotaka assures them that they do, and are just waiting to see what the students are planning as a test. The boys are then fearful at the thought of being expelled, but Kiyotaka tells them that there is a way for both classes to walk away without anyone being expelled. The boys are then in disbelief, but Susune points out that if they would simply withdraw their accusations, everyone would be safe. The leader, Daiichi Ishizaki, considers it and tries to make a phone call to someone, but Susune knocks away the phone, calling him pathetic for being a person's pawn. He gets angry and grabs, but she points out the cameras still in the area and the begging of his friends. He relents and decides to withdraw his accusations. Elsewhere, Airi is walking through the school store and feels that someone is following her. She tries to elude them, but the person continues to follow her, causing her to become stricken with fear. Meanwhile, Kiyotaka is talking to Honami, promising to repay her for the points that he borrowed from her in exchange for the cameras. She understands his intentions and expresses amazement at his intelligence, wondering how he ended up in Class D in the first place, but he states that he is just following Susune's orders as it was her plan. Honami ponders on his answer but decides not to press the issue and simply smiles. Kiyotaka soon gets a call from Airi and answers as she sounds terrified on the other side before the call is abruptly interrupted. It turns out that Airi's phone was knocked away as she is held against a wall by someone as Kiyotaka tries to call her back. The person holding Airi is revealed to be the store clerk Yukitsu Kusuda, who is revealed to be a crazed stalker obsessed with her online photos. He then interrogates her about the letters regarding his feelings to her as well as her avoiding him, as he exclaims how precious she is to him. Airi is so stricken with fear that she is unable to respond. Airi then tries to retrieve her discarded phone after she remembers Kiyotaka's promise to help her, but the crazed man pins her down and threatens to release her photos on the internet if she doesn't comply with his orders. He then takes note of her traumatized expression, becoming enraged by it, and decides to force himself on her as she fights back. Just as the man is about to assault her, a camera flash goes off, stopping him. The man looks up and sees Kiyotaka with his phone, having taken a picture of him in the act, telling him that he'll be big news tomorrow when the photo is released. As the man tries to lie his way out of the situation, Kiyotaka is unconvinced and begins to point out the cameras in the surrounding area which have caught the whole incident on tape, causing Yukitsu to become especially afraid. Kiyotaka begins to inform the man of the consequences of his actions as he tries to run off, but Honami blocks him, having brought security with her. The now crying Yukitsu is apprehended and taken away from the area by Honami and the guards. Kiyotaka then goes to speak with Airi, explaining that he was able to find her by using the tracker on his cell phone and locating her signal, calling it especially fortuitous that they exchanged contact information. She apologizes for dragging him into the mess as she was unable to do anything, but he tells her that her life as an idol may bring about this kind of drama. Airi then discards her glasses, telling Kiyotaka that she will now live a life without lies, as he tells her not to let any situation burden her, and that she can always ask for his advice as he sticks his arm out to help her up. Touched by his words, Airi thanks him and takes his hand before gazing at Kiyotaka, stating he never looked at her that way as he questions this, but she laughs it off. On the roof of the school, Sai Chabashira is smoking leisurely before Susune appears and questions why she was summoned. The teacher explains it was because she wanted to know why Class C withdrew their complaint, asking what Susune did to get this incident done. Susune doesn't answer as Sai decides to change her question to another matter. She informs Susune that to enter Class A, she must be aware of the depths of Kiyotaka. At that moment, Kiyotaka is walking in the courtyard where he is met by Ken Sudo,